3,000 years ago, a man fell asleep in a cave and woke in the middle of the night to a sky with no moon. He looked down at his own hands, and in that silence, he heard his own voice say something that would outlive him. "I am made of light. I am made of stars." Then he looked at the people sleeping around him and saw the same light in every one of them. But there was smoke in between, a fog hanging over each face, so thick that no one could see what they truly were. He gave that fog a name. He called it the dream. And here's the part that should stop you cold. He wasn't only describing them. Right now, reading this, your eyes are open, and you are still dreaming. Stay with me, because a Toltec teacher spent a whole book showing how to wake up. It comes down to 4 quiet promises. What does it mean to dream while wide awake? Don Miguel Ruiz says the mind never actually stops dreaming. It just changes the channel. When you sleep, images run without a frame. When you wake, the frame snaps back, and the world starts to make a certain kind of sense. But that sense was handed to you. Before you could choose, your family, your school, your religion, your whole society poured their version of reality into you. What is beautiful? What is shameful? What is right? Who you are. Ruiz calls that giant shared hallucination the dream of the planet. Billions of personal dreams stitched into one. You didn't question it. You couldn't. You simply agreed. And every agreement you made became a wall of the room you now live inside, a room you mistook for the world. So, how did the dream get inside you? The same way we tame an animal. Ruiz calls it domestication. A child is trained with a system of reward and punishment. Be good, and you get attention, affection, a smile. Be wrong, and you get the frown, the raised voice, the withheld love. Very quickly, the child learns to chase the reward and dodge the punishment. And then something quietly devastating happens. The parents no longer need to enforce the rules. The child starts enforcing them on herself. She rewards herself when she is good enough and punishes herself when she isn't. Ruiz has a chilling phrase for what we become, an auto-domesticated animal. The trainer moved inside, and now it never sleeps. That inner trainer has 2 faces, and the first one holds a gavel. Every belief you ever absorbed got written into what Ruiz calls your book of law, and whatever is written there, without question, becomes your truth. Then a voice appears to enforce it, the inner judge. It measures everything you do and everything you fail to do against that book of rules you never agreed to read. Notice it in yourself. The running commentary that calls you stupid the second you make a mistake, that grades your face in the mirror, that keeps a private ledger of every way you fall short. The judge is relentless, and it is certain. And the cruelest thing about it, it speaks in your own voice, so you never think to doubt it. But a judge needs someone to sentence, and there's another part of you waiting in the dock. Ruiz calls it the victim, the part that carries the blame, the guilt, the shame, whispering, "Poor me, I'm not good enough." Here's the trap. In a normal court, you're punished once for one crime. Inside your mind, the judge convicts you for the same mistake 1,000 times, and the victim pays 1,000 times. Which leads Ruiz to a sentence that lands like a slap. In your whole life, nobody has ever abused you more than you have abused yourself. And then the quiet horror underneath it. The amount of cruelty you'll accept from anyone else is set by how much cruelty you already aim at yourself. So the real question becomes, if the jailer is inside, is there any way out? Before the way out, see the full size of the prison. Close your eyes and listen to your own mind for 10 seconds, and you'll hear it. 1,000 voices talking at once, arguing, judging, replaying. The Toltecs had a word for that noise, the mitote, a fog, a marketplace where everyone shouts and no one agrees, even inside a single skull. And through that fog, Ruiz makes a claim that sounds insane until you test it against your own life. 95% of the beliefs running your mind are simply lies, and we suffer because we believe them. That is the nightmare we're all dreaming with our eyes open. But here is where the whole book turns. Ruiz says you don't have to fix the past or silence every voice. You just have to make a few new agreements strong enough to break the old ones. He offers 4. The first agreement is the foundation. Get this one, Ruiz says, and the other 3 fall into place on their own. It sounds almost too plain to matter, Be impeccable with your word. But watch what he means by impeccable. The word comes from the Latin for sin, and to be impeccable is to be without sin. Then he redefines sin itself, stripping away the guilt and the fire. A sin is anything you do that goes against yourself. So being impeccable with your word simply means you never turn its power against you. And it has power. Ruiz says the word is like a seed, and the human mind is unbelievably fertile. Plant a seed of fear there, and it grows roots you'll be pulling up for decades. To feel the stakes, take an ordinary afternoon. A mother comes home exhausted, and her little girl is singing, happy, loud. The mother snaps. Stop that awful noise. The girl freezes. She believed her voice was beautiful. Now she believes it's ugly, that she disturbs the people she loves. And she carries that one sentence for 30 years, silent at every party. That is the word as a sword. Ruiz says it cuts both directions. It can build the most beautiful dream or level everything around you. Gossip is the sharpest edge. He compares it to a computer virus, one line of corrupted code passed mouth to mouth, infecting how a whole group sees one person. The same tongue that spreads that poison is the one you use all day long on yourself. So the first agreement is really a decision about which edge of the sword you'll live by. Ruiz says, point the word toward truth and toward love, and start with the person you speak to most, which is you. Stop rehearsing the case against yourself. Stop repeating the lie the tired mother planted, because the same fertile mind that grew the fear can grow something else if you feed it something else. He puts it as simply as it can be put. Only the truth will set us free. But even a person impeccable with their word can still be wounded 100 times a day, because the poison doesn't only come from your own mouth, it comes flying in from everyone else's, which is exactly what the second agreement is built to stop. Someone cuts you off, ignores your message, calls you a name, and it ruins your afternoon. The second agreement disarms all of it in one line. Don't take anything personally. And Ruiz backs it with a sentence worth memorizing. Nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. Everyone is trapped in their own dream, their own fog, their own book of law. When someone throws poison at you, they're not reporting the truth about you. They're leaking the war inside them. The insult tells you about the wound in their mind, not the worth in yours. Ruiz even names the hidden vanity in taking things personally. He calls it personal importance, the quiet assumption that everything is somehow about me. Drop that assumption, and 1,000 daily arrows fall to the ground before they reach you. Ruiz pushes this further than feels comfortable. He says even if someone pulled a gun and shot you in the head, it still wasn't personal. It came from their dream, their hell, not yours. It's an extreme example on purpose, meant to show there is no insult big enough to be the exception. When you make this agreement, you become immune, not numb, immune. The poison arrives and finds nothing to cling to. He even gives you a homework assignment as ordinary as a sticky note. Right, don't take anything personally on a piece of paper and put it on your refrigerator so it catches you every single day until it becomes who you are. But there's a subtler poison, and it doesn't come from other people at all. It comes from the stories you invent about them. Here's how the third trap springs. You text someone. They don't answer for an hour. In your mind, hating the silence fills it. They're angry. They're bored of me. I said something wrong. You didn't get information. You made an assumption, believed it completely, took it personally, and built an entire drama out of thin air. That, Ruiz says, is how we manufacture most of our suffering. We see a stranger half smile and decide it's about us. We marry someone and assume they know what we want, then feel betrayed when they can't read a mind. He's blunt. Assumptions set us up for suffering every time because we treat a guess as a fact and then defend it like the truth. And the cure is almost embarrassingly small. Ruiz says it fits in 4 words. Ask more questions. Have the courage to ask what someone actually meant and the courage to say what you actually want instead of expecting the world to guess. It sounds trivial until you try it, because asking means risking a clear answer instead of a comfortable story, and most of us would rather nurse the story. But notice what the first 3 agreements share. They ask you to change how you speak, how you receive, how you interpret. They are, in a sense, impossible to keep perfectly. You will forget. you will slip back into the old dream by lunchtime. Which is why Ruiz saves the one agreement that holds the other three together for last. The fourth agreement is the action that makes the first three real. Always do your best. But Ruiz adds two words that save it from becoming another whip for the judge. No more and no less. Because your best is not a fixed number. Your best when you're healthy is not your best when you're sick. Your best rested is not your best exhausted, heartbroken, running on no sleep. It changes from morning to night, and it will change across your whole life. So this agreement isn't be perfect. It's give what this moment honestly has in it, which means on your hardest days, simply getting through counts as doing your best, and the judge has nothing to convict you for. Ruiz tells of a student who asks his master, "If I meditate every hour, will I reach enlightenment faster?" The master says no, you'll only exhaust yourself. Do it because you love to do it, and that changes everything. This is the hidden hinge of the fourth agreement. When you act for the reward, the grade, the applause, the paycheck, the action becomes a toll you resent. When you act because you love the action itself, the reward stops mattering, and the doing becomes the reward. You take action because you enjoy being alive inside it, not to prove your worth to the judge. And do it enough, Ruiz says, and something quietly powerful happens. Practice makes the master. Not perfect, the master of your own transformation. So there they are. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. 4 sentences a child could recite. Ruiz suggests holding all 4 for just one day, just today, and watching how often you break them before dinner. And that's the honest part he refuses to hide. Knowing the agreements is easy. Keeping them is a war. Because something in your mind has been feeding on the old agreements your entire life, and it does not want to starve. Ruiz gives that something a name, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. First, remember what you're fighting to get back. Watch a small child before the world has finished with them. Laughing, unguarded, asking anything, wanting to explore everything. That, Ruiz says, is the free human. That is what we all were. Freedom isn't a new thing you have to achieve. It's an old thing you have to recover, buried under years of agreements. But look around honestly. He says that out of every 1,000 people, 999 are completely domesticated, running on rules they never chose, guarding a cage whose door isn't even locked. We say we want to be free. The problem is the jailer moved inside a long time ago, and it wears our own face. Here's the name. Take the judge and the victim and the whole book of law they enforce, and see them not as ideas, but as a single living thing. Ruiz calls it the parasite, something that moved into your mind and now runs it for its own survival. And what it eats is your suffering. Every burst of anger, jealousy, fear, and drama is a meal. That's why the mind seems to seek out conflict, replay old wounds, pick at what hurts. The parasite is hungry, and it farms you for emotion. Ruiz calls it a monster with 1,000 heads, and every head is one of your fears. It feels enormous because it has been fed for decades. But anything that lives on your fear can be killed by your courage. Ruiz offers 3 ways to break its grip. The first is the slow, brave way. Face your fears one head at a time, breaking a single agreement, then the next, until the monster shrinks. The second is quieter and quicker. Stop feeding it. Refuse the drama. Don't take the bait. Don't rehearse the grievance. And a parasite starved of emotion simply weakens and dies. He wraps both in an image from the old traditions, going into the desert. You go in alone and you meet your demons face to face. It's terrifying, but he promises this. After you come out of the desert, all those demons have become your angels. The thing you were most afraid to look at was guarding the way out. To fight this war, Ruiz says, you have to become a warrior. And the warrior's real weapon isn't rage, it's forgiveness. Picture an old wound in your skin that got infected and never healed because you keep touching it, keep reopening it, keep the poison fresh. Every resentment you carry is exactly that. And forgiveness is the only thing that drains it. Not because the person who hurt you earned it. Most of the time they didn't. You forgive because you refuse to keep drinking poison and waiting for someone else to feel it. The moment you can think of the one who hurt you and feel no charge, no sting, nothing, that's not weakness. That's the wound finally closing. That's you taking your own power back. Then Ruiz hands you the sharpest tool of all, and it's a strange one. Let death teach you. Imagine an angel of death standing beside you, and everything you have, your body, this day, the people you love, is only borrowed and can be reclaimed at any moment. Live as if tonight is the last night. Suddenly, the grudge looks absurd. The thing you were afraid to say, you say. The love you were rationing, you spend. He calls this the initiation of the dead, a kind of chosen death, where the old, frightened, domesticated self dies, so a freer one can walk out in its place. Not the end of you, your resurrection. And the person who walks out of that is ready to dream a completely different dream. So imagine it. Imagine living one full day with no fear of being judged and no need to judge anyone else. Imagine loving people without conditions, without keeping score. Imagine your own mind gone quiet, the marketplace empty, the fog lifted, the judge with nothing left to say. Ruiz insists this is not some reward you have to die to receive. He calls it heaven on earth, and he means it literally. It is a dream available right now, running on new agreements instead of old fear. Every great teacher, he says, Buddha, Moses, Jesus, the Toltec, was pointing at the same doorway, calling it by different names. The kingdom was never somewhere else. It was a different way of dreaming the life you're already in. And that's the whole book distilled to a single, uncomfortable truth. Happiness is a choice, and so is suffering. Both are dreams. Both are built from agreements. The old nightmare wasn't forced on you by fate. You agreed to it, one belief at a time. Which means you can unagree. Go back to the man in the cave, looking at his hands, seeing the light under the smoke. He wasn't describing a saint. He was describing you, still made of stars, still shining, just fogged over by a story you were handed and never chose. The 4 agreements are simply how the smoke clears, not by becoming someone new, by remembering what was under the fog the whole time. So here are the 4 keys, small enough to carry anywhere. Be impeccable with your word, because your word is the seed of everything. Don't take anything personally, because nothing anyone does is ever really about you. Don't make assumptions, because the courage to ask spares you a lifetime of invented pain. And always do your best, no more, no less, because that is the only door the other 3 walk through. You will break all 4 by lunchtime. That's fine. You make them again. That's the practice, and practice makes the master. Ruiz spent his life dreaming a different dream, and he leaves you standing at the same doorway with one question you cannot hand to anyone else. His choice, he said, is to live in heaven. What is yours?